She's just a pathetic woman, utterly pathetic." The words crackled through the microphone across the pavilion. That she was me. I'd poured $500,000 into my daughter over 7 years' tuition, startup capital, wedding deposits, her downtown condo. Tonight, I stood in the back row while she raised her champagne glass to toast her new investors. They didn't know every invoice, every contract. Every email confirmation in the leather portfolio in my hands was leverage. And when she called me pathetic, I decided to pull the trigger. My name is Margaret O'Rourke, Maggie, to anyone who's known me longer than 5 minutes, and I stood frozen beside the lighting control booth at Silver Finch Pavilion, watching my daughter destroy 28 years of love with a single word. Pathetic. The word hung in the mountain air, amplified by the state-of-the-art sound system I'd helped pay for. 300 guests, venture capitalists, lifestyle influencers. Denver's startup elite shifted in their seats. Some laughed nervously. Others pretended to check their phones. The smart ones sensed blood in the water. Sloane stood at the podium in her $8,000 Monique Lhuillier dress, also paid for by me, her perfectly highlighted hair catching the stage lights. She was explaining Highline Halo's new funding round, her PR firm's expansion into experiential brand elevation, whatever that meant. Then someone asked about her inspiration, her journey, her support system. Well, my mother tried to help. Bless her heart. She gestured vaguely toward the back. But she's from a different generation. She thinks success means punching a time card and balancing checkbooks. She doesn't understand disruption, innovation, the creator economy. She's just pathetic. Really. Sweet. But pathetic. The words hit like ice water. Not because they were unexpected. I'd felt Sloane pulling away for months, but because she'd said them here, now, into a microphone, at her engagement party and funding announcement, in front of everyone who mattered in her new world. My fingers tightened on the leather portfolio. Inside were 7 years of receipts, contracts, promissory notes, $500,000, documented down to the last penny. University of Denver MBA, $170,000. Highline Halo startup costs $90,000. Lodo apartment down payment $60,000. Wedding venue deposits $35,000. The rest scattered across business emergencies, equipment purchases, client entertainment, saving her reputation when deals went south. Each payment came with paperwork. Ruth Delgado, my attorney and former colleague from Westridge Mutual, had insisted on it. Love your daughter, Maggie, but protect yourself. Get it in writing. So I did. Promissory notes with repayment schedules. Sloane always promised to honor once things stabilized. Security agreements using Highline Halo's assets as collateral, personal guarantees, and buried in the schedules. A series of triggers Ruth called relationship insurance. The material disparagement clause was Section 12. Subsection 4. Grant Whitaker, Sloane's fiancé, touched her elbow, whispering something. She laughed. That bright, artificial sound she'd perfected since moving to Aspen. I'm kidding. Of course my mother's been incredibly generous. In her way. In her way. The pavilion sparkled with fairy lights and white roses through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Aspen Mountain loomed in darkness, patches of snow glowing under the moon. The party planner recommended by Grant's mother, paid for by me, had created something from a magazine. Elegant, sophisticated. Nothing like the woman who'd worked 12-hour shifts at Westridge Mutual, eating cold sandwiches at her desk, saving every spare dollar for her daughter's dreams. My phone vibrated. Ruth. Watching the live stream. Say the word. Sloane had live streamed the event. Of course she had. Authenticity and radical transparency were part of her brand. 15,000 viewers watching my humiliation in real time. The audience applauded something. I'd missed whatever clever thing she'd said. She was introducing Grant now, her visionary partner in business and life. He took the microphone, all gleaming teeth and practiced charm, talking about synergy and market disruption and their shared journey toward excellence. Nobody mentioned the woman in the back who'd made that journey possible. I opened the portfolio, running my finger across the latest document. An email from Sloane, sent 3 days ago. Mom, can you guarantee the business credit line increase just temporarily? I'll handle it after the funding closes. Always temporarily. Always after something else happened. The musicians started playing a jazz quartet from Denver, $2,500 for the evening. The catering staff circulated with champagne and carefully crafted appetizers. $75 per guest, guaranteed minimum of $200. The flowers alone cost $8,000. Every vendor had been paid in advance because Sloane couldn't risk payment drama affecting her big night. Paid by me, every single one. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder labeled Sloane Documentation. Everything digitized, backed up, ready. 7 years of being called supportive, generous, a lifesaver in private, in public. I was the embarrassing mother who didn't understand her daughter's world, the pathetic woman from a different generation. The music swelled. Sloane and Grant were dancing now. A choreographed first dance, even though they weren't married yet. The crowd filmed with their phones, content for tomorrow's social media posts. Hashtag power couple. Hashtag startup life. Hashtag love and success. I typed 2 words to Ruth, do it. Then I watched my daughter spin in her designer dress, laughing under the lights she didn't know I could turn off. In a venue she didn't know I controlled. Celebrating with money she didn't know I could reclaim. The word pathetic still echoed in my ears. Time to teach her the meaning of the word. 7 years. That's how long it took to build her empire and destroy my savings. It started in 2018. Sloane had just finished her undergraduate degree at CU Boulder Communications major, business minor, summa cum laude. I was so proud. We celebrated at a steakhouse in Cherry Creek. Just the 2 of us. The way it had always been since her father left when she was 3. Over dessert. She pitched me her dream an MBA from the University of Denver, then her own PR firm. I'll pay you back, Mom. Every penny. With interest. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? This was my daughter who'd worked 3 jobs through undergrad, who'd built her first website at 15, who'd won every leadership award her school offered. So I refinanced the house I'd spent 20 years paying off. $170,000 for tuition, books, living expenses. She insisted on the executive MBA program, Networking Opportunities Mom, which cost $40,000 more than the regular program. I have the promissory note from that first loan, dated August 15th, 2018. Sloane's signature is careful, precise. She'd dressed up for the signing, wearing the blazer I'd bought her for interviews. This feels so official. She'd laughed. Ruth had notarized it, adding her seal with a knowing look. The MBA years were a blur of late-night phone calls about projects and professors, weekend visits where she'd spread spreadsheets across my kitchen table. explaining market segmentation and brand architecture. I'd make coffee and listen, understanding maybe half of it, but loving her enthusiasm. My refrigerator became a collage of her achievements, Dean's List notifications, competition wins, photos from networking events where she stood with Denver's business elite, looking like she belonged. She graduated in May 2020, right when the world was falling apart. But Sloan saw opportunity in chaos. Everyone needs PR now. Mum, digital presence is everything. Highline Halo was born in my living room that summer, with me writing a check for $90,000 in startup funds, office space in Rhino, the trendy Denver neighborhood where all the startups clustered, equipment cameras, computers, professional lighting, software subscriptions that cost more monthly than my mortgage payment, employee salaries she needed talent from day one. Another promissory note, another signature. This time with security a UCC1 filing that gave me claim to Highline Halo's assets if she defaulted. Just paperwork. Sloan had said, barely reading it. I know you trust me. The business grew. Within a year, she had clients, real ones with recognizable names, tech startups, cannabis companies riding Colorado's green wave, boutique fitness brands. She moved to that Lodo apartment. Proximity to downtown clients is crucial, and I wrote a check for $60,000 for the down payment. The mortgage was in her name, at least. Small victory. By 2022, she was traveling. Austin, Los Angeles, New York. Building relationships, she'd say, calling me from airport lounges I'd never see. The calls became less frequent. The visits stopped. When we did talk, it was usually because she needed something. $10,000 for a critical equipment upgrade. $5,000 for a conference that would change everything. $8,000 when a client delayed payment and she needed to make payroll. Always with documentation, always with promises. When Series A funding comes through. After this merger closes, once the receivables clear, I kept working at Westridge Mutual, processing loans for other people's dreams while funding my daughter's. Lunch was crackers and cheese at my desk. Dinner was scrambled eggs or soup from a can. I drove my 2012 Honda Civic with 200,000 miles on it, postponing repairs, making it last. Retirement savings became Sloan Savings. The vacation fund became the Sloan Fund. Then came Grant. They met at some founders' retreat in Vail, December 2023. Within 3 months, they were engaged. The wedding had to be worthy of their brand. Venues were toured, planners interviewed, vision boards created. $35,000 in deposits by June 2024. It's an investment in our network, Sloan explained. The guest list alone is worth millions in potential business. I started noticing changes beyond the money. Her accent shifted, consonants crisper, vowels rounder. She stopped saying mom and started saying mother. Her Instagram posts featured champagne brunches and helicopter ski trips. A world so far from our reality, I sometimes wondered if I'd imagined raising her. The warning signs were there. Emails asking me not to mention my job when meeting her clients. Maybe say you're in financial services. Consulting sounds better than bookkeeping. The birthday dinner, where she seated me at the far end of the table, away from Grant's parents and the important guests. The Christmas when she suggested I might be more comfortable staying home rather than joining them in Aspen. But the money kept flowing. Even after I left Westridge to start Oaken Ledger, my small accounting firm, trying to rebuild something for myself. Even when clients were scarce and income unpredictable. She'd call with crises, a deal falling through, a vendor threatening to pull out, a reputation emergency, and I'd find the money. Somewhere. Somehow. $500,000 over 7 years. That's $64,000 a year. More than many people make. More than I'd ever spent on myself in my entire life. And for what to become the pathetic mother, the embarrassing remnant of her previous life, the woman who didn't understand her world. I understood more than she knew. I understood compound interest and balloon payments. I understood security agreements and events of default. I understood that every document she'd signed while chasing her dreams had teeth, sharp ones. The rehearsal dinner should have been my first warning. 3 nights before the Aspen event, we gathered at Guard and Grace, Denver's premier steakhouse. Grant's parents had insisted on hosting old Connecticut money, making sure everything was properly done. I arrived in my best dress, the navy one I'd worn to Sloane's MBA graduation, and immediately felt the chill. Margaret, Grant's mother, Patricia, air-kissed me from a safe distance, her smile never reaching her eyes. How lovely. Though I thought you were at table 4. Table 4 was by the kitchen door. I could see the place cards Grant's business partners at the head table, Sloane's influencer friends at table 2, second-tier clients at table 3. Then me, sitting with Grant's ancient aunt and someone's +1 who looked equally confused. There must be a mistake, I said. I'm Sloane's mother. Of course you are. Patricia's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. But we needed to arrange by professional synergies. You understand. I understood perfectly. During the sound check, while the event coordinator tested microphones, I heard it clearly. Sloane was explaining something to the videographer they'd hired to document everything. Make sure you get the power players. Skip table 4, that's just my mum and some randoms. She's pathetic, honestly. Sweet, but completely out of her element. The word hit differently when you weren't supposed to hear it. Raw, unfiltered. True to what she really thought. I excused myself to the bathroom and called Ruth. Finally, Ruth said without preamble. I've been waiting for you to wake up. She's my daughter. She's a borrower who's violated multiple terms of her agreements. You know what you'd do if this was a client at Westridge. That was different. Was it Maggie? I've reviewed everything. The non-disparagement clause alone gives you grounds for immediate acceleration. Every loan, every promissory note becomes due immediately if she publicly damages your reputation or professional standing. I stared at myself in the mirror. 62 years old. Grey roots showing because I couldn't afford my colorist anymore. Wearing a 5-year-old dress to my daughter's $40,000 rehearsal dinner where I'd been relegated to the reject table. Send me the acceleration notices, I said, but don't file them yet. Maggie. I need to be sure. Ruth. I need to see if there's anything left of the daughter I raised. The dinner proceeded exactly as orchestrated. Toasts to the happy couple's future. Stories about their meet cute at the founders' retreat. Predictions of IPOs and acquisitions. I raised my glass from table 4, my champagne flat because the waiters had served our table last. After dinner, I approached Sloane during the mingling. She was holding court with a group of investors, her laugh bright and sharp. Sweetheart, I said, could we talk for a moment? Her face tightened. Mother, I'm in the middle of something. It's about the business credit line. She steered me toward the coat check, away from anyone important. What about it? The bank needs additional documentation, since I'm guaranteeing it personally. They want to see Highline Halo's financials. God, not now. She pressed her fingers to her temples, a gesture I recognized from her teenage years. Can't you just handle it? Tell them whatever they need to hear. I can't lie to a bank. Sloan. I'm not asking you to lie. I'm asking you to handle it, like you always do. That's literally the only thing you're good at, pushing paper. The words stung, but I kept my voice level. The company's leveraged beyond what you're showing publicly. Because that's how business works now. You wouldn't understand. You spent 30 years approving car loans for people who couldn't afford them. I spent 30 years assessing risk. And right now, you're a bad risk. Her eyes went cold. Are you threatening me? At my rehearsal dinner? I'm trying to protect you. From what success? From finally making something of myself instead of dying in some cubicle like you almost did? I wanted to remind her who'd paid for her to avoid that cubicle, who'd sacrificed their own comfort, their own future, their own dignity at tables by kitchen doors. But I just nodded. You're right. I don't understand your world. She softened slightly, the way she always did when she won. Look, after the funding closes, everything will be different. We'll pay back everything. With interest. I promise. Another promise. I had a filing cabinet full of them. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from the wedding planner. Ms. O'Rourke, there's an issue with the final venue payment. The Whitakers say you're handling it $30,000 for the ballroom, catering, and service. Due in full before the event. I looked at my bank balance, then at the home equity line I'd have to tap again. Ruth had messaged me overnight. I've prepared everything. Acceleration notices, default declarations, demand letters. The security interest in Highline Halo is perfected. The UCC-1 is on file. The assignment of receivables is enforceable. Say the word. I sat in my small home office, surrounded by boxes of receipts, contracts, and broken promises. On my laptop screen, Sloane's latest Instagram post showed her at a spa day with her bridesmaids, champagne in hand, laughing at something off camera. The caption read, "Grateful for my tribe, the ones who get it. Startup life. Boss bride, level up." No mention of who was paying for the spa day. I opened the event contract for Silver Finch Pavilion. There, in subsection 8, was the clause Ruth had insisted on. In the event of default or dispute, the contracting party maintains full control of event services and vendor payments. The contracting party. That was me. Sloane hadn't even read what she was signing. I texted Ruth. If she says it one more time, if she calls me pathetic once more, we pull everything. And if she doesn't, I looked at the photo on my desk, Sloane at 10, missing her front teeth, hugging me after her school play, both of us beaming, both of us believing in each other. Then I eat the loss and walk away. Ruth's response was immediate. She's going to say it, Maggie. You know she will. I did know. That was the worst part. I did know. Ruth Delgado worked like a surgical team assembling for emergency surgery. By 9:45 p., while Sloane was still spinning under the lights at Silver Finch Pavilion, the legal machinery was already in motion. Default notice sent. Ruth texted. Email timestamp 9:43 p.m. CC'd to Highline Halo's registered agent, Grant Whitaker as corporate secretary, and all senior employees listed on the operating agreement. I stood in the parking lot, my breath forming clouds in the mountain air, phone hot against my ear, as Ruth walked me through each step. The material disparagement trigger is ironclad, she said. Public statement. Documented by livestream. Archived automatically. We have the rehearsal dinner audio too. Multiple violations of Section 12. Subsection 4. Every loan agreement you signed with her contains acceleration clauses. Inside the pavilion, the party continued. Through the windows, I could see waiters circulating with dessert individual chocolate soufflés that cost $32 each. What about the sponsors? I asked. Already done. Notice of assignment sent to all 17 confirmed sponsors at 9:47. Per the security agreement, upon event of default, all Highline Halo receivables transfer to you as secured creditor. Any payments made elsewhere after notice will be subject to clawback. My phone buzzed with forwarded emails. Mountains Venture Capital, pledged $50,000. Techstart Denver, $75,000. Lifestyle Brand Collective, $100,000. Each one receiving the same notice. Please be advised that due to an event of default under secured lending agreements, all payments intended for Highline Halo LLC must be redirected to the following escrow account. The escrow, I asked. Opened it this afternoon when you gave me the green light. First National Bank of Colorado, completely separate from both your accounts and Sloan's. I'm listed as escrow agent with specific instructions. Any funds received get applied first to outstanding secured debt, then to accrued interest at the statutory rate of 8% per annum. 8% annually on $500,000, $40,000 in interest alone. The vendors. Ruth's laugh was sharp. That's the beautiful part. You're the contracting party for tonight's event. I've sent conditional stop service notices to all vendors catering, AV, venue, security, valet. They can continue service only if payments flow through the escrow account. They're protected because they'll get paid after debt offset. It's Sloan who's exposed. I watched a valet sprint past with car keys. Even he was part of the machine I was about to stop. The pavilion manager just confirmed receipt, Ruth continued. They're particularly interested since there's still $30,000 outstanding on the venue fee. They've agreed to maintain basic service, but will halt any additional requests unless payments are guaranteed through escrow. My phone lit up with more confirmations. The AV company, the caterers, the florist, each one acknowledging the notice, confirming they would continue minimal service but requiring escrow payment approval for anything beyond what was already paid. Now for the assets, Ruth said. The UCC-1 we filed in 2020 gives you first position on all Highline Halo assets. I'm sending the notice of secured party sale now. Upon default, you have the right to immediate possession of all collateral described in the security agreement. I pulled up the list on my phone. Camera equipment worth $40,000. Computer systems and software licenses valued at $60,000. The client database and CRM system. Office furniture. Even the company's social media accounts were listed as intangible assets. Can we really take the social media accounts? I asked. The terms of service are complex, but the contracts she signed specify them as business assets. At minimum, we can freeze them through platform notification of disputed ownership. That alone will cripple her operations. 9:58 p.m. More notifications. The live stream was still running, comments flowing in. I could see viewers asking about the technical difficulties as the music had started cutting in and out the AV company implementing their minimal service protocol. Domain names. I asked. Highline Halo, com. Highline Halo PR, com, and 8 related domains. The registrar has been notified of the security interest. Upon default, domain transfer locks are placed pending resolution of secured debt. Jesus. Ruth. You wanted thorough. You get thorough. 23 years in banking law. Maggie. I've seen every way a debtor can wriggle out. Not happening here. My phone rang. An unknown Denver number. That'll be the first sponsor calling to verify, Ruth said. They always call to confirm. Tell them to speak with legal counsel me and that all documentation is authentic and enforceable. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Another. The intellectual property assignment. I asked. Executing now. Upon default. All trademarks, service marks, and branded materials associated with Highline Halo transfer to you as secured creditor. She can't even use her own logo without your permission. Through the window, I saw Grant approaching the AV booth, gesticulating. The technician was shaking his head, pointing to his tablet. The music stopped entirely for 30 seconds before resuming at half volume. Local counsel in Denver is standing by. Ruth continued. If she tries to file any emergency injunctions, we have responses prepared. The agreements specify Colorado law and Denver jurisdiction. We're on home turf. What about her clients? Active client contracts remain with the company, but you control the company assets. She can't service them without equipment, systems, or even email addresses. Every client communication will require your approval as secured asset holder. My phone showed 17 unread emails, sponsors, vendors, confused guests who'd been watching the live stream glitch. The bank credit line I guaranteed, I asked. Notice sent to the bank at 9:51. As guarantor, you're invoking your right to freeze additional draws pending resolution of the underlying default. The $40,000 she was planning to draw tomorrow. Not happening. I could see Sloane now, still at the podium, trying to maintain her smile while Grant whispered urgently in her ear. The event coordinator was approaching with an iPad, looking concerned. Timeline. I asked. She has 72 hours to cure the default under the agreements. That means full payment of all outstanding amounts plus interest, penalties, and legal fees. Current total with tonight's legal work, $547,000. She doesn't have it. No, but her sponsors collectively pledged over $400,000 tonight. With the receivables assignment, that money is yours. Add in the liquidation value of the secured assets, and you'll recover most of it. And Highline Halo. Effectively frozen. Can't operate without assets. Can't receive payments without your approval. Can't use its own brand identity. She can try to continue operating, but she'd be starting from zero. Worse than zero, she'd be starting with a public default on record. The valet ran past again, this time toward the venue entrance. Through the windows, I could see guests starting to cluster, confusion spreading. Someone was pointing at the blank projection screen where sponsor logos were supposed to be rotating. One more thing, Ruth said. The personal guarantee she signed for the original MBA loan includes a confession of judgment clause. If she defaults, we can enter judgment without trial. Her wages, bank accounts, personal assets, all subject to immediate garnishment. Ruth, you wanted nuclear options. Maggie, this is what nuclear looks like in contract law. I thought about the 10-year-old with missing teeth. Then I thought about table 4 by the kitchen door. Send everything, I said. Every notice, every demand, every freeze. All of it. Already done. Emails are hitting in boxes right now. Through the window, I watched Sloane's phone light up in her hand. She glanced at it, still trying to maintain her hostess smile. Then she looked again, her face changing, the smile cracking like ice in warm water. "Welcome to the world you don't understand, baby," I whispered to the cold glass. "Let me show you how us pathetic people do business." The music died completely at 10:15 p. The AV technician stood helplessly by his booth, tablet in hand, shaking his head at the increasingly agitated event coordinator. The fairy lights flickered once, twice, then defaulted to harsh emergency lighting. 300 guests looked up from their conversations, champagne glasses suspended mid-toast, as Silver Finch Pavilion transformed from dreamscape to conference room. Grant found me first. He cornered me near the service entrance, his Connecticut breeding barely containing his rage. "What the hell have you done?" His voice was low, controlled, nothing like the charm he'd deployed earlier. "Do you have any idea who's here tonight? The relationships you're destroying." "My relationships." I kept my voice steady. I wasn't aware I had any relationships here. "Grant, I'm just the pathetic mother at table 4. Remember, this is illegal, extortion, fraud. We'll sue you into oblivion." "With what money?" I opened my portfolio, laying out documents on a nearby cocktail table. "The 40,000 Sloan needs from the credit line I guarantee frozen. The 400,000 in pledges from tonight, redirected to escrow per the security agreements your fiancé signed. The business assets under my control as secured creditor." His face went from red to white. "You can't." "I can." I did. "And if you'd actually read the contracts instead of assuming the pathetic old woman didn't know what she was doing, you'd understand that." Sloane burst through the service door, her $8,000 dress catching on the frame. A small rip appeared near the hem. Her face was streaked with mascara, phone clutched in her shaking hand. "Mum, what the emails, everything's frozen, the vendors." Breathing, Sloane, in through your nose, out through your mouth. I used the same tone I'd used when she'd had panic attacks in high school. "Just like we practiced. Don't you dare." She thrust her phone at me. "Don't you dare act like you care when you're destroying everything." I took the phone, scrolling through the emails, default notices, asset freezes, domain locks. Ruth had been thorough. "I'm not destroying anything. I'm collecting on loans that are in default." "Because I called you pathetic, because of words. Because you violated the non-disparagement clause in every agreement you signed. Section 12, subsection 4. Would you like me to read it to you?" Grant snatched the phone back. "This is insane. One comment doesn't trigger." "One comment." I pulled out my personal phone, opening the voice recorder. The rehearsal dinner played back in perfect clarity. She's pathetic, honestly, sweet, but completely out of her element. Then tonight's live stream. She's from a different generation. She's just pathetic. Really. "You recorded me." Sloane's voice cracked. "The live stream recorded you. 15,000 witnesses. The rehearsal dinner was just backup." The service door opened again. 2 of Sloane's bridesmaids peered in, confusion clear on their faces. Behind them, I could see guests starting to gather their coats. The party was collapsing. "Please." Sloane's voice dropped to a whisper. "Mum, please. Everything I've worked for, everything you've worked for was built with my money. I was going to pay you back. When after the Series A that's been closing next month for 2 years, after the merger that doesn't exist, after Grant's trust fund kicks in, I saw Grant flinch at that. Interesting. You've been lying to me for years. Sloane, but worse. You've been ashamed of me. The woman who gave up everything for you became your dirty little secret. The event coordinator appeared, iPad in hand, looking between us nervously. Ms. Whitaker. The sponsors are asking questions. Mountains Venture wants to know about the escrow notice. They're requesting immediate clarification, or they're pulling their pledge. Tell them, Sloane started. Tell them to contact Ruth Delgado at Delgado Legal Services. I interrupted, handing the coordinator Ruth's business card. All sponsor funds are being handled through secured creditor protocols. You're stealing from me, Sloane said flatly. I'm collecting secured debt. There's a difference. In front of everyone tonight. At my engagement party. Yes. The word came out harder than I intended. In front of everyone. The same everyone who heard you call me pathetic. The same everyone you positioned me away from because I embarrassed you. The same everyone you were happy to impress with money you never earned. Grant stepped forward. We can work this out. Quietly. Privately. Pull back the notices. Let us get through tonight, and we'll sit down tomorrow. The notices are filed. The escrow is established. The defaults are documented. I picked up my portfolio, organizing the papers with the same precision I'd used for 30 years at Westridge. You have 72 hours to cure the default. $547,000, including interest and legal fees. I don't have that. No, I agreed. But your sponsors do, and thanks to the receivables assignment, that money comes to me first. The pavilion's main lights came on fully harsh, fluorescent, unforgiving. The fantasy was over. Guests were leaving in droves, whispered conversations and sideways glances following their exit. Someone had stopped the live stream, but the damage was done. 15,000 viewers had watched Highline Halo implode in real time. You've ruined me. Sloane's voice was hollow. My reputation. My business. My life. No, sweetheart. I shouldered my bag, suddenly exhausted. You ruined your relationship with the one person who would have given you everything without requiring a contract. I'm just a pathetic old woman who knows how to read the fine print. Ruth appeared in the doorway she'd driven up from Denver the moment I'd given the word. Professional in her grey suit, even at 10:30 at night. She looked between the three of us with the satisfaction of a chess player who'd just called checkmate. Ms. O'Rourke Whitaker. Mr. Whitaker. She nodded curtly. I'm here to supervise the asset securing process. We'll need access to the Highline Halo offices tonight to ensure preservation of collateral. Tonight, Grant sputtered. The agreements specify immediate possession upon default, unless you'd prefer we involve the Denver County Sheriff. Sloane looked at me one more time. For a moment. I saw my daughter really saw her beneath the highlights and designer dress and carefully constructed persona. She looked lost, young, scared. Then her face hardened. I hope you're happy, she said. You got what you wanted. Everyone knows Maggie O'Rourke isn't pathetic. She's just vindictive. She pushed past me toward the main ballroom, Grant trailing behind, already on his phone with what sounded like his father's attorney. Ruth touched my elbow gently. You did the right thing. Did I? Through the doorway. I watched Sloane try to salvage something from the wreckage, speaking to the remaining guests, forcing a smile that fooled no one. The mountains loomed dark through the windows, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out below. Come on, Ruth said. Let's go secure those assets before they try to hide anything. I followed her out, leaving Silver Finch Pavilion and its fairy lights behind. The nuclear option had worked exactly as designed. I just hadn't calculated how much radiation I'd absorb in the blast. The Highline Halo offices occupied the third floor of a converted warehouse in Rhino, Denver's answer to Brooklyn's creative districts. At 11:45 p. Ruth and I stood in the reception area while a locksmith worked on the doors. The building's security guard watched nervously, checking our court order for the third time. Emergency secured party possession, Ruth explained patiently. Judge Harrison signed it an hour ago. We have legal right to secure all assets listed in the UCC-1 filing. The locks clicked open. The space beyond was exactly what I'd expected. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, motivational quotes in neon. Disrupt everything glowed pink above the reception desk. Ironic, considering what we were about to do. Ruth directed the two paralegals she'd brought. Martinez, photograph everything before we touch it. Chen, start cataloguing computers and equipment. Serial numbers matched against the asset list. I walked through the space I'd paid for, but never seen. $90,000 had bought quite the playground. A podcast studio with professional soundproofing. A photography corner with thousands in lighting equipment. The conference room table alone, live-edge walnut, probably cost $10,000. My phone buzzed continuously. Sloan, Grant, numbers I didn't recognize. I silenced it and got to work. Maggie, come see this. Ruth stood at Sloane's desk, pointing at 3 monitors displaying various dashboards. She left everything logged in. The CRM showed every client, every contract, every pending deal. Highland Halo had 43 active clients, with monthly retainers totaling $120,000, annual run rate of nearly $1.5 million. My daughter had built something real with my money, but still real. Download everything, Ruth instructed Martinez. Client lists, contracts, financial records. It's all subject to the security interest. I opened Sloane's desk drawers, branded notebooks, expensive pens, a bottle of champagne marked for when we hit 2 millions. In the bottom drawer, wrapped in tissue, a framed photo from her MBA graduation. The two of us, smiling, my arm around her shoulders. She'd kept it hidden, but hadn't thrown it away. Ma'am, the paralegal, Chen, held up a laptop. This one's encrypted. Note it in the inventory. We'll compel the password through the court if necessary. At 12:30 a.m., we hit the real gold. Ruth had accessed the accounting system, and the numbers told a story Sloane had never shared. Highline Halo was bleeding money. Despite the impressive revenue, expenses were out of control. Lavish client entertainment, $20,000 last month alone. Team building trips to Cabo and Miami. A company Tesla that only Sloane drove. She's been running it like a lifestyle brand, not a business. Ruth observed. Burning through cash to maintain an image. The image was everything to her. I said quietly. We worked through the night. Every camera, lens, microphone, and cable catalogued and tagged. The computers were wiped of personal data, but locked from any business use. The domain names, 8 in total, were transferred to a holding account I controlled. The social media accounts were trickier, but Ruth had prepared cease and desist letters for all platforms, asserting ownership dispute. At 3:15 a.m., Sloane arrived with Grant and a man in a rumpled suit who introduced himself as their attorney. This is illegal seizure, he declared, though his voice lacked conviction. Ruth handed him a folder. Court order, security agreement, UCC1 filing, default notices, and Judge Harrison's emergency order. Your client signed every document. Every security interest was perfected according to Colorado law. While the lawyers sparred, Sloane stood in her ruined dress, staring at her dismantled office, the podcast studio where she'd interviewed Denver's entrepreneurs, the wall of press features and awards, the vision board covered with magazine clippings of the life she was building. The client contracts, she said suddenly. You can't take those. They're between Highline Halo and the clients. Correct, Ruth replied. But you can't service them without equipment, systems, or the ability to receive payments, all of which are secured assets subject to our control. So the clients just suffer. You can notify them of the situation. I'm sure they'll understand that their PR firm's owner defaulted on $500,000 in secured debt. Grant was on his phone, voice urgent. Dad, I need you to wire. Yes. Now. I understand the trust conditions. But. So there were problems with the trust fund. Interesting. By 4A. We'd loaded everything valuable into the moving truck Ruth had arranged. The office looked like a crime scene, cables dangling where equipment had been, empty desk drawers gaping open, the vision board left crooked on the wall. The escrow account, Sloane's lawyer said finally. Our position is that sponsor funds were charitable donations, not receivables. Ruth laughed. Charitable donations to a for-profit LLC with promised equity stakes and service agreements. Good luck with that argument. My phone showed the escrow balance $287,000 already, with more sponsors confirming transfers to avoid litigation. Not enough to cover everything, but substantial. Mom. Sloane approached me while the lawyers argued. Can we talk alone? We stepped onto the office balcony, Denver spreading below us in the pre-dawn darkness, the city where I'd raised her, where she'd built her dreams, where those dreams were now collapsing. I'll make you a deal, she said. I'll publicly apologize. Post a video saying you were the key to my success. Whatever you want me to say, just stop this. Please. It's too late for that. It's never too late. You taught me that. I taught you a lot of things. Apparently, none of them stuck. She gripped the balcony railing, knuckles white. What do you want? Really want to destroy me? Mission accomplished. I wanted a daughter who wasn't ashamed of me. I wasn't. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. Every time you introduced me as being in finance instead of a bank clerk, every time you seated me away from important people, every time you laughed nervously when someone asked about your background and changed the subject, you were ashamed. I was trying to fit in by erasing me. The sun was starting to hint at the horizon, painting the mountains purple-grey, beautiful and cold, like the daughter I'd raised. The money's gone, she said flatly. Even with the sponsors, the assets, all of it. You won't get everything back. I know. Then why? I thought about the photo hidden in her drawer, the girl who'd kept it but couldn't display it. Because you need to learn that everything has a cost. And the cost of calling your mother pathetic in front of the world is exactly this. Ruth appeared in the doorway. Final count, $312,000 in escrow, $90,000 in liquid assets, approximately $60,000 in equipment at resale value. Total recovery, $462,000. That's $40,000 short. Grant said from behind her. Plus legal fees. Ruth added. Call it 60,000 short. I looked at Sloane. You have 48 hours left to cure the default. Find $60,000, or I proceed with the personal judgment. Where am I supposed to find $60,000? The same place I found 500,000, I said. Figure it out. I walked back through the gutted office, past the neon sign still declaring, "Disrupt everything," and out into the Denver morning. Behind me. I left my daughter standing in the ruins of her empire, finally understanding what it felt like to have everything you built torn away by someone you trusted. The pathetic mother had become the secured creditor, and the secured creditor always gets paid. The Silver Finch Pavilion looked different at 5:30 p.m. the next day. The fairy lights were gone. The flowers had been removed. Under the harsh work lights, it was just a big, expensive room with too many windows. 300 chairs sat empty, facing a podium where truth was about to replace fiction. I'd paid the venue staff to stay, to keep the AV system running, to maintain the live stream that still had 8,000 viewers waiting to see how this story ended. The sponsors who'd wired money to escrow had been invited back. Most came partly for potential refunds, mostly for the drama. Sloane arrived at 5:45, Grant beside her, both looking like they'd aged 5 years overnight. She'd changed into a simple black dress, her hair pulled back, makeup minimal. For the first time in years, she looked like my daughter instead of a brand. You wanted a show, she said, approaching the podium. Fine. I wanted the truth, I corrected, taking my place at the control laptop Ruth had set up. The show is just transparency. Your favorite word, remember. The remaining sponsors filled the first 3 rows: Mountains Venture Capital, TechStart Denver, Lifestyle Brand Collective. All the players who'd pledged their money to a company that no longer functionally existed. Behind them, a handful of journalists who'd caught wind of the implosion. The live stream chat scrolled rapidly. Spectators to a corporate execution. At 6 p.m. Exactly. I walked to the podium. Good evening. I'm Margaret O'Rourke. Most of you don't know me, though you've been investing in businesses built with my money for 7 years. I clicked the remote. The first slide appeared on the screen behind me, a simple spreadsheet showing every payment I'd made to Sloane since 2018. $500,000, not invested for equity, not given as gifts, loaned under secured promissory notes with specific terms and conditions. Click. The non-disparagement clause, highlighted in yellow. Last night, my daughter called me pathetic in front of all of you. That triggered an event of default across all outstanding loans. The room was silent, except for the hum of cameras. Click. Screenshots of emails Sloane had sent to her team over the past year. Don't let my mum talk to the investors. Keep her away from the important tables. She doesn't understand our world. It's honestly pathetic. This wasn't a momentary lapse. It was a pattern. I stepped aside as Ruth took the podium. Every inch the corporate lawyer. As of 10:15 last night, all Highline Halo assets became subject to secured creditor remedies. The escrow account has received $412,000 in sponsor funds that will be applied to outstanding debt. The remaining balance of $88,000, including legal fees, is due within... She checked her watch. 26 hours. Grant stood up. This is extortion performed as theatre. No, Ruth replied calmly. This is a secured creditor exercising contractual rights. Your fiancé is free to cure the default by paying the balance. Otherwise, we proceed with personal judgment and wage garnishment. She doesn't have $88,000. Grant's composure finally cracked. Then perhaps, I said, returning to the microphone, she should ask her future husband, the one from Connecticut Money, the one whose trust fund seems to have some conditions attached to it. Grant's face went red. The truth we'd uncovered in Sloane's emails during the asset recovery, his trust fund required him to be married before he could access it. He needed Sloane as much as she needed him. A mutual exploitation dressed up as love. Sloane stood slowly, walking to the podium like she was approaching a guillotine. The live stream chat exploded as she appeared on screen. She started, then stopped. For the first time since she was a teenager, I saw her without a script, without talking points, without a brand message. My mother is right, she said finally. I called her pathetic. I hid her from you. I was ashamed of where I came from. The room held its breath. She worked 30 years in a bank, processing other people's dreams while saving every penny for mine. She refinanced her house, emptied her retirement, lived on eggs and crackers so I could have MBA tuition and startup capital and this entire fake life I built. Her voice cracked, but she continued. I told myself I was protecting her from a world she didn't understand. But the truth is, I was protecting my image from the reality of who I am, a woman whose mother sacrificed everything and got called pathetic in return. Click. I brought up the final slide, the total amount owed, updated in real time. $88,432. Sloane read. I don't have it. Highline Halo is functionally dead. My personal accounts have maybe $4,000. She turned to the sponsors. Your money is gone to pay secured debt. You can sue me, but there's nothing to recover. Then she turned to me. Mum, you win. You've proven your point. I'm the pathetic one, living off your money while pretending I earned my success. Is that what you wanted to hear? No, I said quietly, the microphone picking up every word. I wanted to hear, thank you. I wanted to hear, I'm proud to be your daughter. I wanted to hear anything except pathetic. The live stream chat had gone silent. Even the journalists had stopped typing. My phone buzzed. A wire transfer notification. I looked at the screen, then at Ruth, who was checking her phone with raised eyebrows. It seems, Ruth announced, someone has wired exactly $88,432 to the escrow account. Grant's phone was in his hand, his face pale. I convinced my grandfather to advance part of the trust. You'll have your money within the hour. So he'd broken the conditions, accessed money he wasn't supposed to have yet. For her. Then we're done, I said. The default is cured. The debt is paid. I signed the release Ruth had prepared, then slid it across to Sloane. Her signature was shaky, nothing like the confident swoops on all those promissory notes. Highline Halo's assets will be returned Monday morning, Ruth announced. The sponsors are free to pursue their arrangements with Ms. O'Rourke Whitaker independently. The sponsors were already leaving. There would be no arrangements. No one invests in a founder who publicly imploded, whose mother had to repo her life on livestream. The wire confirmation appeared on the screen. $500,000, plus interest, plus fees, every penny recovered. I picked up my portfolio and walked toward the exit. Sloane called after me. Mum. I stopped, but didn't turn around. What happens now? Now you rebuild, without my money, without my safety net, without calling anyone pathetic. Can we? I don't know. Sloan, I got my money back. I didn't get my daughter back. Those are different things. I left her standing at the podium in the empty pavilion, the live stream still running, capturing the ruins of everything she'd built on the foundation of calling her mother pathetic. My phone showed the bank balance, 500 $. Received. It was the most expensive word anyone had ever spoken about me, and they'd paid for it in full. I walked through Silver Finch Pavilion's service corridor, the same path I'd taken 24 hours earlier when I'd been the pathetic mother at table 4. Now I was $500,000 richer and completely empty. The backstage area was chaos in slow motion. Event staff packed up equipment with the efficiency of people who'd seen plenty of disasters. The industrial lights made everything harsh, real, stripped of pretense. Through a gap in the curtains, I could see Sloan still at the podium, Grant beside her, both staring at nothing. She sat on the floor, $8,000 dress pooling around her like spilled ink. No tears? That's what struck me most. My daughter, who'd cried over failed tests and lost competitions and broken hearts, sat dry-eyed in the wreckage of her empire. Grant was on his phone again, probably explaining to his grandfather why he'd needed emergency access to trust funds. Their wedding, planned for next spring at the Four Seasons Vale, would never happen. You don't marry someone after they've cost you your financial security and watched your family implode on livestream. My phone vibrated again. Another wire confirmation. This time from my bank, confirming the interest payment had cleared. $47,000 in interest over 7 years. Ruth had calculated it perfectly. I pushed open the exit door. The mountain air hit like a slap sharp, pine-scented, indifferent. Aspen sprawled below, lights beginning to twinkle in the dusk. Somewhere down there, wealthy people were having normal evenings, unmarked by family destruction. The parking lot was nearly empty. My 12-year-old Honda Civic sat alone in the back row, still bearing Denver airport parking stickers from my trips to visit Sloan in better times. I'd driven 3 hours to watch my daughter call me pathetic. I'd driven 3 hours to destroy her in return. The driver's door creaked when I opened it, another repair I'd postponed to fund Sloan's dreams. I set my portfolio on the passenger seat. All those contracts and receipts now just expensive paper. Evidence of love measured in dollars and broken promises. I sat for a moment, keys in my hand, not starting the engine. Through the pavilion's windows, I could see the empty chairs, the blank projection screen, the podium where truth had finally been told. The live stream was probably still running, capturing nothing but an empty stage. A perfect metaphor. The phone buzzed once more. A text from Sloan. I kept your photo. The one from graduation. It was in my desk drawer. I knew. I'd seen it during the asset recovery. Hidden, but kept. The story of our entire relationship. I typed back, I know. 3 dots appeared, showing she was typing. They lingered for a full minute, then disappeared. Nothing sent. There was nothing left to say. The engine turned over on the second try. I pulled out of the parking lot, leaving Silver Finch Pavilion in my rearview mirror. The road down from Aspen was dark, winding, demanding focus. Good. I didn't want to think. At the Glenwood Springs exit, I stopped for gas. Inside the convenience store, a young woman was buying energy drinks and instant noodles, counting out exact change. She looked exhausted, probably pulling a double shift somewhere, maybe supporting her own dreams or someone else's. I recognized the look. I'd worn it for 30 years. "I've got it," I said, stepping forward with a 20. She looked startled, then grateful. "Thank you. Really. Pass it forward someday." Back in the car, I thought about the money sitting in my account. $500,000. I could retire properly now, travel, buy a car with working air conditioning, live the life I'd postponed for so long. But it felt like coins on a corpse's eyes, payment for a relationship that died the moment my daughter decided I was too embarrassing for her new world. The lights of Denver appeared around 11 p. Sprawled across the plains like fallen stars. My city, where I'd raised Sloane alone, where I'd worked endless hours, where I'd built my small accounting firm from nothing, where I'd rebuild my life from this nothing too. I parked outside my house, a modest ranch in Park Hill. I'd nearly lost twice keeping Sloane afloat. The oak tree in the front yard had grown massive over the years, its roots probably destroying the sewer line I couldn't afford to fix. Another problem for another day. At least now I could afford to fix it. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. Coffee cup in the sink, mail on the counter. The ordinary debris of an ordinary life that had somehow produced an extraordinary disaster. I sat at my kitchen table, the same one where Sloane had spread her MBA applications, where we'd signed the first promissory note, where she'd promised she'd never forget everything I'd done for her. My phone lit up with notifications. The live stream had ended. The video already had 50,000 views. Comments poured in, taking sides, assigning blame, turning our tragedy into content. I turned the phone off and walked to my home office. On the wall hung my certifications, my business license, the newspaper clipping from when I'd left Westridge to start Oaken Ledger. All the accomplishments Sloane had found too boring to mention. I pulled down the clipping, looking at my younger face, full of hope about building something of my own. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe with the money back, with the weight of Sloane's needs off my shoulders, I could actually build the business I'd dreamed of. Or maybe I'd just learned that some dreams, like some daughters, cost more than they're worth. I went to the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Sloane was dealing with the aftermath. Somewhere, Grant was explaining to his family. Somewhere, the sponsors were writing off their losses. And here, in a modest house in Park Hill, a pathetic mother stood with her money returned and her heart broken, having learned the hardest lesson of all: you can repo a car, you can repo a business, you can repo assets and domains and dreams built on borrowed money. But you can't repo love. Once that's been defaulted on, no amount of money can make you whole. I took a deep breath of cool mountain air flowing through the window. Then I walked to my bedroom, set my alarm for 6 a.m. and prepared to start over. Without her. With everything I'd earned back, but nothing I truly wanted. The interest had been paid in full. But the principle of unconditional love between mother and daughter, that was a debt that would never be collected. I closed my eyes and let the mountain wind carry away everything except the truth I was Maggie O'Rourke. I was nobody's pathetic mother. I was free. Thank you for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Maggie's position? Let me know in the comments below.